Welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. I'm LeeAnn Lohman. I'm joined tonight by Zac Franciscus. We have our fancy new intro, which is very exciting. We appreciate Zac's wife, Honey, the music master, putting some special music over this for us, which we think was awesome. We do have a guest joining us tonight. We're going to kind of preview the Steelers draft situation, so he should be along shortly. But before he gets here, we have a couple of things we just kind of want to touch on. I think the biggest news today was that Jaylen Warren did work out a deal with the Steelers. He's a restricted free agent, and he did sign his tender. That tender made him was 1 year, and it was for roughly $5.3 million. So I was curious kind of what you guys think about that. Warren, 26, is now set to be the Steelers' starting running back in 2025, which has become something that's a little bit up for debate among fans, whether he's able to handle that, capable of handling that, has the skill set, or is he a running back that needs to be a part of a group like he was with Najee Harris in previous seasons? Zac, what do you think about that?
I thought it's good. It's one of those really boring, stable moves that we haven't done enough of this season. Just, get somebody signed, do what you need to. He deserved to get paid. But we're going to talk more about the Mike Tomlin press conference as we go along. But Mike Tomlin, when he was asked directly about, in other words, is Jaylen ready to be a bell cow? And he danced around that like only Mike Tomlin can. He said all the nicest things and never once said, well, he's the number one guy. He just said, he's like, well, we're excited about the potential he has. He's excited his skills, and that never once committed to it. So that's a smart move. Jaylen Warren, I love the guy. For everyone who thinks that he should be a bell cow, you do not understand his running style. So
is Chuck really here? Or am I getting teased? Chuck, are you there? I can't see you.
Can't see him. Yeah, well, he's muted at the moment.
Hold off for a minute until I'm sure he's here.
Yep. Not a problem. So, but with
Zac and I talked about this a lot. I mean, everybody who's ever watched us on a show before knows that Zac and I were both huge Najee Harris fans. Both Bama fans, both Najee fans. So I'm trying to separate the part of me that's still bitter that Harris is gone, to the part of me that was excited by how well Warren has performed, in recent years. So I think it's interesting. Do you know what I mean? I think it'll be interesting to watch. I personally think that he is somebody who does need to be part of a partnership. Do you know what I mean? I think he has more skills and talent than most undrafted rookie running backs would in the NFL. But I think he does need that partnership, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Oh, here's Chuck. There he is. Hey, Chuck. Where is the voice?
Wait, one second. Let's see.
Is that us or you?
I think I didn't unmute myself. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Hey, Chuck. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, ma'am.
So for the people that are watching, if you know Chuck from Twitter, he's probably insulted your mom, and that's about the best way I can clue you into who he is if you spend any time on Twitter. Although his absence has been sorely missed. When I announced on Twitter yesterday that you were going to join the show, I had 5 people who were like, tell him we said hi. Tell him to come back.
Yeah, well, that part's not going to happen, I don't think.
Yeah. So we were just talking about Jaylen Warren signing that 1-year deal today with the Steelers. And what do you think? Do you think he has what it takes to kind of go into the season and be like the Steelers 3-down back or the Steelers RB1? Do you think he needs a partner in this draft?
I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. He certainly played well when he was relieving Najee, but does he have the stamina to Najee was a really big running back, could take a lot of punishment. And does Warren have that? I don't know. Well, I guess we're going to find out there.
You always said that one of the best things about Harris, was that the best ability is availability, right? He was just so present and rarely injured, never missed games. And that's something that Warren has struggled with a little bit. So I think that'll be interesting to see how much that falls apart. You could always kind of count on Harris, even if Warren wasn't there, struggled with some of the other backup pieces like Cordarrelle Patterson, but at least you had kind of those guys. So I think that'll be interesting. We were going to mention too, Zac had brought it up right before you came on the show about Mike Tomlin's press conference today and kind of the things that came out of that. And we're going to talk a little bit later about Shedeur Sanders. But I did have a quote from Tomlin. He was asked about, of course, about all of the Aaron Rodgers stuff and how much he thinks that impacts the draft. So when he was asked if the Aaron Rodgers situation impacts the Steelers' plan for the draft, he said it does not. And then he was asked about, what do you do in the, about how if what they do in the draft, would it then impact what happens with Aaron Rodgers if obviously the deal isn't done prior to the draft on Thursday? And he said, what you do in the draft oftentimes affects your talent acquisition that happens after that, and kind of said, we'll have to see what happens this weekend, before we can say anything. So typical, like Tomlin non-committal on anything, which I think makes sense. But I think it's curious when we started talking about Aaron Rodgers months ago, 6 weeks ago, or whatever it's been, I was sure that this would be locked up by the draft. So are you guys surprised that we're still talking about this?
Yeah,
Let me take it.
I'm not only surprised, I'm frustrated. And by the way, Brooke Pryor was on 93.7 earlier today, and what she said flew directly in the face of what Mike Tomlin said, because she said very, very clearly the Aaron Rodgers situation determines the Steelers' offensive identity moving forward. It's not a small thing. If Aaron Rodgers comes to town, you're telling Arthur Smith, I really don't care what kind of offense you want to run. This is now a pass-first offense, and you're going to deal with this. And if we get anybody else, even Sanders, then that means Arthur Smith, you get the kind of offense you want to enjoy. So I don't understand how you can say that if we get the Aaron Rodgers doesn't impact that, because if it's one offense or the other and they're two completely different, I think that affects it. So I'm curious why Mike Tomlin would just say that if Brooke Pryor, someone who has some kind of access, believes the exact opposite.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm surprised. I'm actually kind of happy, though, because I don't want Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not opposed to an Aaron Rodgers style quarterback who would be a pass first offense. Like, that would be exciting and that would be great. I'm not a particular fan of his. He just seems to come with a lot of drama that the Steelers probably don't need right now. And that's regardless of what you think of any of his opinions. It's just like he hasn't made the decision yet. He hasn't committed. So the question is, does he really want to be here? Is he holding out for somewhere else? What's going on? I mean, I didn't want him to begin with, and I certainly don't want him now. So I think they should forge ahead without him. So that's my opinion on that. Although to play devil's advocate with Tomlin a little bit, Aaron Rodgers is only going to be the quarterback for a year or two. I mean, 3 tops. So you are still kind of having to build for the future. So maybe that's what he means. Yeah, sure. It probably affects what the Steelers do this year, but in the future, we've got to pass the torch to the next guy regardless. So maybe that's what he meant. If we're trying to be charitable.
Right. He can say that because no matter what they do in the draft, he can be like, well, that was our plan. And that's why Aaron Rodgers didn't affect it. Right. So we drafted D tackle first in the draft. Right. Well, that it didn't matter about the quarterback because we weren't going after one of them anyways. We were always going to run it out with Mason Rudolph, or they draft Shedeur Sanders. And then they can say, well, we wanted him to get whatever he could from Rodgers by osmosis or whatever during this year, even though they're somewhat different quarterbacks. You know what I mean? I think that's always like Tomlin's move to finesse things, to say very little, to say something that's not controversial and say very little, and then, kind of be able to cover his ass that way. Like you, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I've been hoping that this didn't work out all along. I have to admit, I'm a little bit nervous that we don't have anybody else on the roster, and I don't feel real good about any of the draftable quarterbacks this year. I was hoping we were waiting till next year. And my thought was I would have rather just run it back with Russell Wilson one more year and at least had somebody, even though it's not ideal, even though you're not winning a Super Bowl like that. At least you have somebody. You get somebody who's decent, got you to the playoffs. You give that offensive line time to come together and work, and then you look for a really good quarterback in 2026. So it scares me that I'm more nervous about the potential draft of somebody that's maybe not, are we reaching is this Kenny Pickett all over again where we're reaching for somebody?
Oh yeah, I'm certainly, I think we're going to talk about this a little later, but I'm certainly hoping we're not picking a quarterback in the first round. To be honest with you, that's not the direction I would go in. I honestly feel like this is kind of like a replay to when Ben retired. What I wanted the Steelers to do, and it wasn't necessarily a popular opinion, but I was just run it with Mason Rudolph. Either he's going to be the guy that nobody thinks he is, and we'll all be like, oh my goodness, we were wrong. I'm so glad he's the guy. or he was going to be exactly who he is, or you could build some more pieces around him. Instead of signing Mitch Trubisky for like $10 million or whatever it was, you signed offensive tackle. Oh, I think I lost y'all.
Yeah. No, whoop, you broke up a little bit. I can see you, but you're frozen. Zach, are you frozen too, or are you just sitting still?
No. Oh no, I was just sitting still.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
So who is? Yeah, I can hear you. So who is your ideal first round pick, Chuck? If you could kind of pick your person, you know what I mean? Who would you pick for the first round for the Steelers at 21?
I mean, just full disclosure. I mean, I watched plenty of college football, but mainly my Tar Heels. So, I mean, this is just based upon reading. Like, I think the Steelers need a tackle. And so, like, I'm thinking who's going to be there at 21. So I'm looking at guys like maybe Josh Simmons from Ohio State, Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, or what's his name? Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. Like, one of those guys might be there. I'd like to see something like that because, again, that's kind of what I think I would have done when Ben retired. Like, put a line in front of Mason Rudolph, see if he can get it done. And if he can't, then, you know, because, I mean, Kenny Pickett obviously was not the guy.
Right. Clearly. I mean, and I think that's part of like fans' frustration is this feeling that you've blown like so many first round draft picks. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that perception to me seems a little bit skewed. Like they're not all blown, right? They weren't all busts, but Kenny Pickett was certainly a reach and a mistake. And so I don't know. I look at this draft and that's how I feel about the quarterback. So I see all of these every day. I'm writing articles about the Steelers have Shador Sanders mocked to them and Jackson Dart and, you know, Jalen Milroe. And I'm a Bama fan. I don't want Milroe in round one. I mean, that's crazy talk. Yep. So I think that makes me really nervous. I've been kind of on the Kenneth Gainwell like train the whole time. I like him. Do you know what I mean? I think he brings something different to the defense. I think I'd like to see us start building in the trenches in the defense. I don't know. What about you, Zach?
I think I've heard a lot of talk about how not having that second round pick doesn't handcuff us, but it really makes that quarterback situation weird because you shouldn't take one in the first. There's enough running backs there to take him in the third. So that second round was a nice little place if you had to take a quarterback that fell, because I'm really worried about how many people I see talking himself into a quarterback at this point. A lot of people, we're talking national media and all this are trying to find stuff, and we're going to talk about the quotes later. But I want either Grant or I think it's Derek Harmon, defensive tackles. I want a big, to me, a lot of people don't think it's sexy. I think a big, nasty 10-year defensive tackle is one of the sexiest picks that you can have in football. And we're taking Cam Hayward for granted. We're not even sure we're going to get the same year that we got out of him last time because that was an aberration. You're not supposed to have that kind of thing coming off an injury and all this. So I'm wondering if people not doubting him through the whole offseason isn't going to, you know, inspire him like it did. But give me a defensive tackle. Because I remember, and I'm going to say this so many times between now and when the Steelers pick. When the Steelers pick Kenny Pickett, right before the pick, I turned to my wife and I said, the only way the Steelers could make a horrible mistake here is if it's Kenny Pickett. Turn back to the screen and almost scream. If that happens again, I don't know what I'm going to do because we're still here talking about how bad a pick that was. So that can't happen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Big Poppy. I like Grant. I like Walter Nolan. I like something like that. I just think it's almost what we have to do. Like we saw I was on board with a wide receiver, but I'll be honest, there really isn't very good ones. You know what I mean? I don't even know that I think Ted McMillan is like that good. Do you know what I mean? To go maybe at 21, that's not so bad. Earlier than that, maybe not. But now that we have DK Metcalf, it kind of solves that problem, at least temporarily. And so then I think you have to start looking at the defense. But I am worried about that quarterback position. I mean, everybody seems to think that, you know, is where we were going to go. So do you feel, you know, Chuck, do you feel like that would be a mistake to go with any of those guys at 21? Or is there one of those quarterbacks you would be like, that's not so bad?
No, I don't like any of the quarterbacks in the first round this year, to be honest with you. I don't really know much to add to that. I don't really like.
Zach and I had this conversation on our old podcast where, you know, is like I'm constant butting heads between myself and Bob because, like, I believe firmly that if you take Shedeur Sanders at 21 or Jalen Milroe at 21. Like that's a reach, right? You're taking a reach and it's a reach and it's a major risk, right? So just because somebody goes in the first round, that doesn't really make them, to me, a first round talent, right? Bob would argue that they are a first round talent because they got taken in the first round. I'm like, well, Kenny Pickett did. And I don't think anybody would put him on the same pedestal as Jaden Daniels or any of these other young guys that have gone in the first round. I just feel like it's just because you reach for somebody and take them doesn't make it like a good draft pick or doesn't make them first round material. And that's kind of where I am with these guys. And there's like something in me that says there's no way the Steelers are going to do this again. They're not going to draft a running back. They're not going to draft a quarterback, and we're not going to listen to this bullshit for another 4 years about those positions. But I don't know. Just when I think they're not going to do something, they're going to do something.
Yeah, something I've been thinking of, because we're going to talk probably too much today about Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
That in all of the talk about his ability and his accuracy and the physical part of it, I'm wondering if a lot of people are blind to the fact that is this just another Aaron Rodgers circus we're going to get? Just in Shedeur Sanders form, because I'm furious about the drama that Aaron Rodgers is going to bring, the upheaval, the miscommunication that are sure to happen, the argument. Why wouldn't that happen with Sanders? Because for a fact his dad's going to be involved in every single thing that happens.
Yeah.
So and not only that, for anyone who truly thinks the Steelers need to take a quarterback, I need you to think of it in the reverse angle, because do we have the operations right now to take a rookie quarterback? Do we have are we a landing spot for a rookie quarterback? When we took Ben, it was perfect. I don't think he could have picked a better landing spot than us. We are not that landing spot right now. There has to be some reality.
What do you think we're missing to be the landing spot?
It's not just on the field. I've lost faith in the Steelers' ability to progress players at the rate that we need to. And if you can't even do that with the players we have now, why are you going to be able to do that with a quarterback taken in the first round with a ton of pressure? You couldn't do it with Kenny Pickett, and nothing has changed that much from the foundational parts of the team since then.
Well, we don't have Matt anymore.
We moved up. We have moved up a little bit in that, but I don't trust Arthur Smith to be able to really make a young quarterback into a great one. Let Mason ride.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just me. I know that I'm in the minority in this, but I feel like I have to have faith in their ability to develop players, right? Like this is like elite professional sports, and this is literally your freaking job. And I have to have faith that they know what they're doing and they make the right hires. Does that mean I agree with like everything that they choose to do in the organization? No, but what's going to be different between this year and next year when they draft the quarterback of the future in 2026, right? They got to be able to develop him at some point. I don't know. Where do you land on that, Chuck?
I mean, I think I agree more with you. Like, I got to have faith. I mean, maybe they have lost the ability to develop, but I've got to have faith in the coaching staff. I mean, I'm not the one making the hires. So whoever's making the hires, I have to assume, knows better than me, because like nobody ever paid me to coach. I coached for free. So like, obviously they know at least a little bit more than I do. I think like my main thing is the offensive line. I mean, it has improved a little bit, but I still don't think it's necessarily there. And I'd hate to see a guy, get sacked a million times in his rookie season. And I mean, that might affect his confidence. And that's why, like, I was leaning more towards like an offensive tackle. Not that I'm opposed to a D lineman either. I mean, I think the defense is in better shape right now than the offense is, but I mean, they're all getting older. And so, like, I mean, there are definitely a lot of holes, but I think I would start, like, what do they say in Blindside? Like, the first check you write's for the mortgage, the second check you write's for the insurance. In this regard, I think you need to write the check for the insurance before you go out and you buy the house, because the house is going to take some damage and you need somebody to protect it.
Yeah. Sander brings up, are we not taking a quarterback because there aren't good ones in this draft? And I would say this, I mean, look, we don't know what we're going to take, right? We're just, we're just guessing here. But I think, collectively what we were kind of saying is that the talent in this year's draft isn't where it's been in other years, like across the board, but especially not at the quarterback position. So like I did an article yesterday where Cam Ward, who's expected to go first overall to the Titans, would have been ranked the 7th best quarterback in last year's draft. So that puts him behind a whole lot of players. So I just think that the quality isn't there. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Although now one thing to remember for anyway, these next, I think are we less than almost exactly 2 days away from when the draft happening. 90% of what you hear is going to be complete baloney. I mean, an absolute lie out of people's mouths, knowing they're saying it. So just this morning, I woke up to hear Kaboli say that it's going to be a boring draft. We're definitely going to take a defensive tackle. And by the end of the day, we have quotes where Shedeur Sanders is absolutely coming to the Steelers. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be an insane next 48 hours. So just stick to what you believed yesterday.
Yeah.
And don't change that till the draft.
Yeah. My mom was asking me about the draft on the phone earlier today, and I was telling her that what's hard about it is that usually you have this like pocket of like blue chip talent that you're pretty confident like these 15 players or whatever it is, right, are going to go fairly early in the draft. So you maybe don't have the exact order, and there's always somebody that like screws it up, picks somebody random, right? But you have this idea. But this year's draft, when you don't have that like group of like elite players that take up the first like half of the first round, and all of a sudden you're everybody, it makes it feel like more of a free-for-all. It's why I think the mock drafts, and I mean I'm far from a draft expert, but it feels like that's why like they're all over the place, do you know what I mean, with so many variables, everybody talking about it. So is there a team that you feel like picks in front of the Steelers that could really screw things up for us this year? I mean, I feel like for me, this is the first year where I haven't felt like, ooh, that team could really fuck up whatever my master plan is. But I'm a little bit more flexible this year. Like Chuck, I'm kind of into the defensive line, but I would be okay with an offensive tackle. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that leaves a lot of players that should be on the board at 21. But Zac, do you feel like there's a team that could blow your master plan for the Steelers out of the water?
Yeah, because everyone's talking about the Saints at number 9 kind of being the linchpin on the Steelers quarterback decision. And I really hope we are not just sitting there while the Saints are picking saying, oh, please don't take Sanders, and then watch him tumble to us. Because that's what that means. If anyone was curious about what it means when you hear the Saints brought up, the Saints with Derek Carr being injured and possibly not playing, they definitely are looking at Shedeur Sanders and take him. I welcome that because Chuck, you brought up a good point. Shedeur Sanders will get sacked if he comes to Pittsburgh, and he will get sacked a lot. And he was the most sacked quarterback in the NCAA the last 2 years. We're going to break the poor kid if we do that.
Yeah. Chris says he doesn't think there's any way that that Sanders will get past the Raiders. Which maybe, I don't know. I thought that more before. Now I'm backed off that a little bit with their recent moves, but maybe. I think any of that's possible. What about you, Chuck? Is there a team in front of the Steelers that you're kind of eager to see what they do, or that feels like the determining factor for what the Steelers do?
I mean, I think everybody needs offensive line help, regardless of who you are, just about everybody. So almost any team, but I think the teams that are in most desperate need of a tackle are like the Patriots, the Panthers, the Giants, and they all pick top 10. So I'm not looking at top 10 talent. So I don't really think so, but I mean, everybody could use an offensive lineman. And if he's, if the guy the Steelers want is the best guy available on the board, somebody may very well take him because, again, anyone can use some offensive line. In fact, I was trying to researching for this. I was trying to look at things, and almost every team, one of their top 5 needs was offensive line.
Right,
so.
Right. Yeah, I guess then it always, where did they have that person ranked on their board? You know what I mean? How valuable did they see that person, or how good of a fit were they for their team compared to what else is there? But you're right. I mean, I think it's hard. It's one of the things that I think the Steelers usually do well is that kind of drafting the best player available within that pool of what they need. I know that there's fans who don't like that, but I do. Do you know what I mean? I think it keeps it keeps us getting some fresh talent. Like, I don't think a lot of fans expected us to go offensive line 2 years in a row, but I think it was smart.
I agree. And a concerning thing about this particular draft is I don't know the exact number, but it's been a long time since this close to the draft, everyone still has their original number one picks. There hasn't been a number, and to me that's concerning because I don't trust NFL GMs to actually be that stable and confident. So that means everyone is just getting more and more tense and more brittle and more. And so all it's going to take is one weird run for everyone's boards to go all over the place, and Shedeur Sanders to become a 4th round pick and Cam Ward to be picked in the 3rd, and it like the insanity that could happen because no one has made a first move yet. Because normally by now you already have a couple picks like that and trades like that, and there's been nothing. It's been dead quiet as far as first round trades. So I'm nervous about that. Genuinely.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see where Carter goes and where Travis Hunter goes. I think those will be interesting to see. I mean, I think 2 and 3 just because they're so talented. I don't know. If I was a Titans fan, I would rather have Carter than Cam Ward. But that's just me.
Oh.
I would have kept somebody else at quarterback and gotten a better quarterback next year than taking him.
That's true. And for anyone who doesn't think Travis Hunter can do what he says he's going to do, because I'm one of those few, I don't know how much on the minority I am. I truly believe if he wants to, he could actually play both sides on the NFL field.
Way.
I truly believe that. No, I didn't believe it until I don't normally make these wild things. I watched him every game. He never ceased to make me almost jump out of my seat going, there's no possible way a human being just did what he did. And he did it on both sides of the football. There hasn't been, if there's a person who's going to do it, like he says, it's going to be Travis Hunter. I can't doubt him. I really can't.
You think with regularity, like not like he's primarily a receiver and plays a little bit at cornerback, or primarily a quarterback and plays a little bit of receiver, you think he could do it with like regularity?
I think if Travis Hunter is truly given a chance, because the NFL team could simply say, no, you're this, or no, you're that. If a team really, like when Tebow came in and gave him that, if Travis Hunter gets that kind of a chance, an off the wall, no one else is really doing it, but here, take your shot. I think Travis Hunter can make himself into the kind of person that is needed to do that. I weirdly enough, I've learned better than to doubt Travis Hunter when he says he can do something. So,
I mean, I've never played professional football, but it seems like the managing all of the materials and the learning and the plays and the practice and all of the thing that would go into it would be a lot at the professional level. I don't know. What do you think, Chuck?
I think of it more from like the physical standpoint. I mean, it's a lot of wear and tear on your body just to play one side at the NFL level.
Yeah.
This isn't like MLB where like Shohei can pitch and, just designate hit. Like, I mean, you're going to be taking hits as a receiver. You're going to be laying hits out as a cornerback. And I think, that's where I would worry if a guy can do it. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, they lay big hits in college too, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. And the caliber of the teams that they played at Colorado, I know this comes up all the time, but it's just the truth. Like, it's not the same. You're at the pros. Everybody is the best, right? Everybody that you're playing against is the best. And I just think that has a big impact. I think the kid has like legit talent. It is no way from me is it a knock on the kid's talent. You know what I mean? I think he's really talented, but I think he's got some size issues. And, and then I agree with Chuck about the physical aspect. And then I also think that the learning piece of it is just, that's a lot for one person. There's a lot that goes into playing in the pros. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good point.
So let's talk about his teammate, Shedeur Sanders, a little bit. I mean, I feel like he's like the elephant in the room, right? So many mock drafts have Shedeur coming to Pittsburgh. I had a little graphic that I had done because he had an interesting comment today. He was on podcast today with Max Crosby, the Rush podcast, and he was asked who his Mount Rushmore of duos were, along with Brady and Gronk and Rodgers and Devontae. His last spot was, quote, whoever the quarterback for DK Metcalf and George Pickens, whoever that is this year. I wonder who he's referring to. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was funny. I thought it was, I give the kid like mad props for the creativity on that. If he really thinks he's got a shot at going to the Steelers, or maybe that was a conversation he really loved to have, or who knows, maybe he's a professional shit stirrer. I don't know. Chuck, what do you think about the odds that Shedeur winds up in black and gold?
I mean, I don't think they're necessarily very high, at least, or maybe that's me hoping, because again, I don't think he's worth a risk in the first round when you have other needs. Maybe if the Steelers were a more complete team, you roll the dice and see what happens. But I mean, they have too many other holes that they need to fill. Yeah, they do have a couple good receivers, and you know, whoever they put there, maybe you'll have some success throwing to those guys. But you got to stay upright, and you know, I don't. And then the running game, like that's a big question. It's not going to be as good this year, or well, most likely not going to be as good this year as it was last year. And I don't know that it was that great last year, in part because of the blocking. So I don't know. I just I'm not confident. Like I said, let Mason Rudolph do it. He's been in the system a little while. I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in him either, but you can put more pieces around him than you can like a young guy, and then see what happens next year. Hopefully somebody will emerge, you know, in the NCAA next year that like, okay, that's the guy that I want to have.
Yeah, well, I worry that if we don't and we take him, then we're like set back again, right? Like if the whole goal was to get to 2026 and get a good quarterback, you take Shedeur Sanders this year, then we're right back in like Kenny Pickett survival mode for 3 years, and we dump him. And 4 years from now, we'll be talking about how we blew another draft pick and the Steelers are so stupid they did it twice in 8 years or whatever it is. I mean.
Well, you still got people mad about Edmonds, and Edmonds was at least solid. Was he worth where they drafted him? Absolutely not. Like, but then people will say like he sucked, and I mean he just didn't live up to where they thought he would be. Like he was pretty solid while he was with the Steelers. I don't think you're getting like I think if you get Shedeur Sanders, either he is going to succeed and they're going to look like geniuses, or he's going to utterly fail and you know go the way of Kenny Pickett in like 2 or 3 seasons. That's it.
Right. And I do think that there's an element of that to every draft pick, right? Like there's always guys that you think, you know what I mean, are going to be fantastic. I always like to talk about Washington and Albert Haynesworth. So, I mean, there's always guys at teams that are going to be great and then are utterly horrible. And that happens. There's a luck element that goes along with this, but I think that that's a calculated risk you're taking. And so when you're reaching for a player like we did in Pickett, then you have to like really pray that you land the next, Antonio Brown or Tom Brady or whomever. I don't know. Zach, what do you think?
I think I've heard a lot of people, whether it's in chats that I've watched or all this, say, well, if you get there and Sanders is the best player available, you have to take him. I will say something. If you get to that point and Sanders is the best player available, you trade back. Because someone else is going to want to trade up. And if Shedeur Sanders is just sitting there at 21, Steelers trade back. Get your second round pick back. Stock something up. Really feed off of other people's desires to take Shedeur Sanders. Because if he really is the best player available at that point, it's still not the pick you should be making. And so genuinely, if we get to that point and that happens, because Omar Khan today in the press conference said that it's more likely that we trade back than we trade up. So if that happens, I really, really hope he stays true to his word, because you could get a king's ransom for some jittery young GM that really, really wants Shedeur Sanders and didn't get a chance to get him earlier. So.
Yeah, I mean, if that worked out, I mean, I'm okay with that. If they felt like there was, a pool of players that would be left wherever they wind up at the end of the first round, then I guess that would make sense. But I don't know. It's concerning. To me, it's concerning. Like his name has just been linked to the Steelers way too much. But I keep telling myself, like, we see this every year, right? There's always somebody that the media latches onto. I don't know why. I feel like we've been punished enough recent history, why we need to be punished with these rumors too. But I'm curious what you guys think about Sanders overall. I know you mentioned a minute ago, that he kind of brings the circus to town with his dad. Do you think, that he's, I don't want to call him a character problem, because I don't think he's shown to be like a character problem. Do you know what I mean? He's not doing like bad things or illegal things, but he definitely brings like a drama factor, I feel like. And so are you more concerned, Chuck, about like the drama factor in him, the talent factor, or the lack of talent, or the lack of first round talent, or kind of a combination?
I mean, I think it's more about the talent, and that's not to say he's not talented. I'm not sold. Like, I looked at a lot of, yeah, I looked at a lot of people's big boards to try to get, because again, I only saw him play a couple times because I do primarily watch my Tar Heels and maybe a couple other games here or there. And it seemed like most people had him somewhere around like 40, 45. So like kind of like a, maybe early to mid second rounder. So like to take him at 21, that just seems like a reach to me based upon other people's evaluations. I mean, I watched him, he was pretty exciting, and it does seem like, at least with Wilson and Fields, when they had him, that they were trying to move into an offense more suited to Shedeur Sanders, like like a more athletic, mobile quarterback than somebody like Ben or Mason Rudolph, who are more like pocket passers. So I mean, maybe he'll fit, and I'll gladly eat crow if they pick him and he succeeds. But I'm gonna be nervous the whole time until it happens. Like,
yeah,
100%. And there is a drama factor, but to play devil's advocate a little bit, Mike Tomlin brought up the one positive that I could actually agree with, where you don't have to worry about the light being too big for him at this thing. He's dealt with this light his whole life. So that's one of the few things where you're not going to get a rookie quarterback that doesn't know how to deal with the media, doesn't know how to do that stuff. The dude's been doing that since he was young. That's not a problem. Yeah. And when I think about it, if there is any coach in the NFL, and I'm saying this not wanting Shedeur Sanders, I feel like I have to put a massive asterisk disclaimer as I say this, but if there's any coach in the NFL who could help him transition from being coached by his father to being coached by an NFL coach, it's Mike Tomlin. I truly believe that. And maybe that's why the link there is so strong, because you're going to need someone who can help him transition from that. I don't care how well Dion coached him in school. That's still your dad coaching you. And it's been your dad coaching you. And this is going to be the first time in how long that his dad isn't going to be coaching him. That's not going to be an easy transition. There's going to be some pushback, and you need someone who can really get through to that young man. And if Mike Tomlin can't, I really don't know who can.
Yeah. I try to kind of look at this stuff objectively because, I was never a big Deion Sanders fan. Certainly recognized the talent that was there, right? But like not a fan of him, not a fan of his teams. And so, I try to, much like I would probably, if it was Ray Lewis's kid or something, take it in the same way, right? And not be a big fan of this person. So I try to like set that stuff aside and just look at the other stuff. And I do think that there's some validity to that. I think it helped Joey Porter Jr. transition a little bit, that he'd been around professional sports so much, that part of it, the starstruck part of it or whatever, wasn't such a big deal. But I thought it was interesting. He was recently on podcast with, what's her name? That'll come back to me, the young girl. And he had his hood up, right? It was right after his meeting with the Steelers, and he had his hood up, and he was like talking like this, like up against the camera, and all these people were angry. And she asked him about people calling him arrogant, and he said, and brash. And he said, I'd never even heard the word brash until somebody called me brash. And he's like, I didn't even know what it meant. He's like, I had to look it up. And he's like, I don't think I'm any of those things. I think I talk the talk and walk the walk or whatever. So then, people started talking about how he proves how arrogant he is by how would you show up for somebody's podcast and have your hood up over your head, and all of these things. And she came out in his defense and said, look, he was in the Pittsburgh airport, like being nice enough to give me his time. He was trying not to draw like a bunch of attention to himself and a bunch of attention to me on the screen. And she kind of defended him and felt like he was being super respectful. But I don't know. To me, I think he's no more or less arrogant than many of these kids are, right? I mean, you're uber famous in college. You're getting paid. You've got NIL deals. I don't know that I see that any different than anybody else. But Zac brought up Tomlin's comment earlier, so I wanted to bring that up. He had some praise for Shedeur Sanders when asked. He said, I think the things that stood out were evident in this video, he told reporters. There's toughness there that doesn't get talked about enough. There's a competitive spirit there that doesn't get talked about enough. I know he's very talented. He made a lot of plays for his university and his team, but the intangible qualities displayed on this tape were impressive to me. So it was video of him playing. And I think that that's valid. It seems like typical Tomlin to me to not like oversell or over deliver, to kind of just keep it like right in the middle. I don't know. Did you guys read anything more into what Tomlin said?
What did you think about Tomlin?
I mean, Tomlin is famous for, trying to keep everything middle. And I mean, I think he gets a lot of criticism for it, and maybe it's deserved, maybe it's not, because if he came out and was himself more brash, if you will, people would criticize that too. With these guys, I mean, I think they're all, kind of arrogant, and I think you need it. Like, I mean, one, to be that supremely talented, like even if he wasn't an NFL talent, to play D1 football for, a pretty major university, like I don't think the average person can fathom how good those guys are. Like, you might have been good in high school. That's like a whole other level, and then the NFL is a whole other level on top of that. So I think you need some of that arrogance. Like if a guy comes off as a little arrogant, like I think that's really just him being confident, and I think he needs it, because if he doesn't believe he can do it, then I mean that's not the guy you want on the team anyway. Like he probably can't do it. Like if he thinks he can't do it, he probably can't.
I think that's a really good point. And the other thing I said about Shedeur Sanders is that, like, look, his dad was coaching these teams that he played on. Sure, that's true, right? But I think most of these people are so competitive. I believe Deion is so competitive. If there was somebody else there who was wildly more successful in the quarterback position than his son, he would have been sitting on the bench. I know it because my dad benched my sister for years of soccer because she wasn't the best player on his team, right? Like, that's the pro football thing.
I mean, everyone, when you're the dad coaching everyone, I coached my son, and he was a huge Troy Polamalu fan. He wanted nothing more than to play safety. And my defensive coordinator did let him play some safety. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't my call. That was his call. Right. Where I needed him because he knew my offense better than anybody, in part because he was there to study it and whatnot. Like, I actually needed him to be a receiver. Like, I had a quarterback that was better than him. So he wasn't the quarterback, but he knew how to play. Like, it was my Z position, because I did a lot of motion with Z and a lot of things. He knew how to do that, and that's where I put him. And yeah, some people accused me of favoritism, but it's like, if I put this kid where he wanted, he wouldn't even be. He had no desire to play offense whatsoever. Right. He just wanted to lay hits. That's all he wanted to do.
Right. And Sanders did, like I said, he followed his father. I mean, he went from an HBCU, do you know what I mean, and then moved up to Colorado. I mean, to me, I think he's shown like the progression that, or his plays probably padded some to accentuate his talents. I mean, sure, right? But on the other hand, I mean, I think that the skill is there. It's on tape. It's visible. It's not imaginary.
That's right. And
Hey Adam's podcast. That's whose podcast he was on.
Oh, yeah. Caboli actually talked specifically about that comment Mike Tomlin said, and he said the fact that Mike Tomlin went out of his way to talk that much about Shedeur Sanders should tell everyone there's no chance in hell that we take Shedeur Sanders. But I'm going to counter that. Now, I don't know nearly as much about the situation as Caboli does, but the one thing I really latched onto that Mike Tomlin said was when he was joking about I actually have the quote here that he was talking about the lead up to the draft, and he said it's a game to be played, it's a competition, it's fun. I think about it on pro days as you guys watch us move, who I interact with and where I go. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not, but there's a fun component of the competition. If that's where he would have stopped, that would have been fine. But then he added this. The same could be said about who we bring in on our pre-draft visits. When he said that, I actually sat right up and looked at the screen, because what I have heard from every draft expert in Pittsburgh or nationally is that the guaranteed way to see who the Steelers are going to take is to look at who they bring in on their draft visits. And Mike Tomlin pretty much said, yeah, fuck you. That's not true at all. You guys are all idiots if you think that that's actually how we base it. I thought that was hilarious for Mike Tomlin to say that. And I'm like, well, now we have no idea.
But that's the whole point, don't you think? That's the whole point. Because if he says, yeah, that's true, then you're always going to have this narrow window, right, of players, when in theory they could maybe think they already know enough about somebody who, or maybe there's somebody who falls to them they thought they'd never get, right? So I mean, to me, I think Tomlin's always going to say whatever he has to say to keep people guessing. But your comment about that made me think about what Kabali said, made me think of another tweet I saw today, and I meant to put it on a slide and I forgot. Tomlin was asked during his presser today about the need for interior defensive line in this year's draft. He said, quote, "The nose is a disappearing animal like the fullback in our game." So somebody said, Kenneth Grant fans, go ahead, look away. Nothing to see here. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you also, since we have Chuck here, and Chuck is such a huge Tar Heel fan, a little bit about the smoke surrounding Omarion Hampton. He's another player that's popped up quite a bit as a possible Steelers pick at 21, with the assumption that Ashton Jeanty will be long gone, and then Hampton kind of being the consensus like second best running back. I think the Steelers, we talked about Warren earlier, and I think he would benefit from having a partner. How much like smoke and fire do you think are there, Chuck?
Well, so first of all, Omarion Hampton is the truth. Like I've already said how much Tar Heels football I watch. Like that dude, I mean, he's the dude. I mean, I don't think I'm taking him in the first round though. Like, I don't like first round running backs. I wasn't a fan of the Najee pick, which was kind of funny because later on I found myself defending Najee a lot from people being like, "Oh, he sucks," and I'm like, "Man, dude doesn't suck. He's actually performing and he's doing pretty well." I think, I mean, Hampton. I mean, he's a pretty big dude. I've seen him. I mean, granted, it's different at the NFL level, so I don't know if he can do it at the NFL level. But I mean, he would run dudes over. He has a decent amount of speed. I mean, the Tar Heel fan in me will be thrilled if somehow he ends up as a Steeler. I don't know that I want him in the first round, though, even as much as I love him.
That's how I felt about Najee Harris. And then the Steeler fan base broke my heart for 4 years talking shit about drafting back in the fourth round. Big Poppy said he loves Hampton. He'd love to see this happen. So I'm curious, Big Poppy, would you love to see this happen with our 21st pick, first pick of the draft? Because we're not getting him in the second round. We don't have a second round pick. So, and I don't think he'd be there, like whatever we have, second round, whatever it is, 46 or whatever it is.
He's projected to go in the first. So I kind of expect him to go in the first. And if not, like really early second.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be there. But he's popped up a lot. I don't know, Zach, do you have thoughts on him or thoughts on a first round running back?
I feel the same way about you, about Najee. I got my little Najee guy right here that I hug and cry every night when I have to remind myself that he's not here. But if we took Omarion Hampton or Ashton Jeanty for the comment from Anna and the thing, it's a better pick than a quarterback, but it's still not the right one. So you're doing better. You went in a better direction. It's still not the right one. It's still I feel like a reach to me. It's not it doesn't fit exactly because that talent is there at 21. They might deserve to get picked at 21, but it's a reach for the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers. So in that specific view, that is a reach. So I'm not talking about talent or whether they should be drafted in that area. It's whether they should have that kind of value to us. Right. And I agree with you, Chuck. Unless we find a way to trade back up into the early second round or decide to use that first round pick, you're not going to get Hampton, because I haven't watched as much as you have, but from what I saw, it would kind of irritate me a little bit because I'm like, that's Najee. You just would pick Najee again. Why did you get rid of him? You're going to pick Najee again.
Right.
So
that's a little bit how I feel about some of that. Yeah. Like we just got rid of a guy we could have had who knew our system, who was reliable and not, wasn't getting injured all the time. Yeah, I think, I feel kind of the same way. Chris said as a Jeanty lover, he's a little bit concerned about how he'll translate because of the quality of talent he played against. That kid's really good. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be interesting for a lot of these guys in this draft. I just think that there's some question marks around talent. Annalee thinks Jenny will translate to the league better than Travis.
That's fighting. Those are fighting words, Annalee.
Well, we must have missed your rant about how Travis Hunter can definitely come into the NFL and play both ways for the entire season or his entire career or whatever.
But for anyone who is holding on to the dream that Jeanty will be around, if he is around near us, I guarantee he won't get anywhere close to us because the Broncos will take him in a heartbeat.
Right.
If he gets there, there's no way Genty is going to get to us because the Broncos are a running back machine, and what they could do with him would be so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is a little bit Hodgepodge's comment is a little bit how I feel. Like there's so many running backs with talent in this draft, and we have other needs, you know what I mean, that I feel like we need to focus a first round pick on. Unless there's some sort of like generational guy that falls to us, I think, you know, we need to focus on. And so we're gonna almost have to look at a running back a little bit later on in the draft, maybe with that third round pick.
Oh, definitely. It's a deep running back and defensive tackle class. So if we get that defensive tackle taken in the first round, that third round, honestly, even a fourth, like the depth of this running back class is so good that you're not going to get maybe a star, but you're going to get a really viable NFL running back at many different points. Oh, and a quick shout out to Hodgepodge. That's who I call that's Bald Dave from our old podcast. So shout out to him for jumping.
Is that who that is? I didn't know that.
He has a Pirates podcast too called Hodgepodge of Nothing Is. So yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't hear it. Just be who you really are. Don't be pretending.
So I'm repping today the Pirates.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, that's a hard life, bud. I am so glad that my parents didn't raise me to follow baseball because they would have put me in a bad place. So goodness, man, you've been through shit.
The argument in the chat right now over whether Travis Hunter is going to make it in the NFL or not is going on hot and heavy in the comments. And I said that DK Metcalf would send Hunter to the shadow realm on a run blocking assignment.
Good as that. You know what? On that particular one, I didn't think about that one particular aspect, and I'm mad at myself for doing that. And Hines Ward would kick my ass. I don't know how good of a blocker Travis Hunter is, to be 100% honest. I know a lot about Wade, but I'm trying to think, and he was the one who was getting the ball. He wasn't one who was asked to block a lot. So if I'm gonna have to take some look into that. If anyone in the chat knows if he's a good blocker,
he has to be a pretty good blocker. I didn't really pay attention to that either when I was watching him on offense, but it feel like, do you know, Chuck? I feel like he has to be a pretty good blocker because he literally does that on defense. How hard is it to transition that skill into some blocking on offense?
I mean, so this is just, I really don't know. Like, this is just based on teaching kids. It was much easier for me to teach kids to play defense than offense. The one thing we struggled with on defense was like pursuit angles, right? But like teaching them like hand position, like they love to grab. I mean, granted, at this level, that shouldn't be a problem, but I had a real hard time teaching kids to block. So just because you're good at defense doesn't necessarily mean you would transition to blocking. But these are also really smart guys who are supremely talented. And it's not, I don't know, in my opinion, it's not that hard of a skill. I mean, to be as good as them is very hard. But like, I mean, once you like have proper technique, it's really not that hard. So he could probably run block. I think he could learn.
Google,
maybe not like Hines Ward, but you know.
Right, but he's a unicorn. Google's AI overview said he's not known for being an exceptional blocker, but his size and physical presence allow him to anchor in pass protection and be a strong run blocker. But he's not considered a plus blocker one-on-one in the run game, and he may not be a dominant blocker in that area. But if he's playing both ways, and he's got to take some plays off and sit down, he can't do everything. And the hate is strong. Travis Hunter is mid as hell, in my opinion. Got the Heisman just because he was a dual threat. I'm so irritated Colorado retired him in Shador's numbers. I did think that was interesting.
Yes, that last part, yes, 100%. That is a disrespect to the amount of former Colorado players that got on social media and gave interviews about the amount of people that deserved to do it before them. I will 100% agree with you on that one part. So
yeah, interesting. All right, guys, any final thoughts about the draft? Any deep, dark fears or concerns or hopes you want to share before we log off for the night?
You want a deep, dark fear? I have a deep, dark fear that somehow Jackson Dart's going to come out of nowhere and end up being our core. That's my deep, dark fear. You asked for something. Yeah, I know. It hurts my soul to think, but that's a genuine fear that I have, that it's lurking behind these smoke screens.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to definitely solicit a comment from Charlotte somewhere in the comments about any mention of Jackson Dart to the Steelers will make her explode. I've like mentally blocked him from my thought processes. I keep forgetting about him. Yeah, definitely hope that doesn't happen. Oh, Dave asked who we wanted to be our first pick. We did talk about this a little bit earlier. I think Chuck was kind of on like offensive tackle line.
Yep.
I was kind of like D line, and Zac was
Yep.
also kind
Kenneth
of on
Grant.
defense. Yeah.
Kenneth Grant,
Yeah.
Derek Harmon, that kind of stuff for me. But it seemed like trenches all around. You know, all three of us genuinely out there. There's
I knew it
ins
was
and outs.
coming.
Absolutely, no, you
I
called it.
thought she was watching.
Yeah, build up those trenches. And Chuck, I really like what you said earlier. Don't do this guy dirty again. Let's ride with Mason. You're not going to get a Hall of Fame quarterback out of this. You were probably not going to get a Super Bowl run, but we can have fun with Mason and we can build around him while we do it. So I enjoy that. Let's do that.
I like that plan because while I don't think Mason's got what it takes to even win our playoff game this year, you know what I mean? I do think that we need to be focused on being ready for 2026. I think it's kind of what the Eagles did. I think it made a lot of sense. I think we can continue on that path and it works for us. So just a few programming notes. We are going to do a draft show on Thursday night. I believe we'll start at 7 and get started. Then we'll have a guest joining us that we'll let you know about a little bit later. And then Zac I'm having foot surgery tomorrow, so I'll probably only be on for a little bit, but Zac is going to stay for the whole night and he'll be doing live draft stuff with people for the whole night. And then we're going to come back on Friday and kind of do a reaction show on Friday evening to just kind of talk about, a short show to talk about that draft pick and now what we kind of hope for the second round. So we'll keep everybody posted via Twitter and Blue Sky and let you all know what we're planning to do. We appreciate everybody who joined us tonight. Chuck, I appreciate you coming and making our night better. And I hope, fingers crossed, for everybody getting their wish on Thursday night in the draft.
LeeAnn and Zac would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.